Well, coming up next on Morning Light, Better Together. Christian Endeavor helps local churches empower the next generation by equipping young people to live for Christ every day. You're watching Morning Light on Lighthouse TV.
The youth in your church hold the potential to make an incredible impact on their generation and beyond. Christian Endeavor walks alongside churches to equip young people to become lifelong followers of Christ. Joining me is the Global Director, Dave Coryell. Thank you for being with us.
It's great to be with you.
Talk to us about Christian Endeavor.
Yeah, Christian Endeavor is a movement. It's a youth movement. Currently, you can find people connected to it in 56 different countries, and God has been using it to help churches lay a foundation, really a strategy for how they approach teenagers and young adults, and it has been spreading since 2017. It was in 29 countries, and now it's been rapidly growing. In the United States, we went through a rebirth of this strategy back in 2012, and it's already grown out into 15 states from that launch. And that is from our efforts, but there's 10 additional states where people have immigrated to the United States and brought Christian Endeavor from their homelands back to the place where it started. And so God is using this strategy to impact millions of lives around the world.
How does it work?
Yeah. How it works is that there are 6 Christian Endeavor priorities. And so what we do with our small team is we come alongside of churches and we equip them on what these priorities are. Now, depending on the cultural context, we're not going to tell them how they're supposed to do everything in their culture. But these 6 priorities lay a biblical foundation, and then they take them and say, how are we going to do these here? And so those are really the steps that we take with coaching and materials and guiding church leaders, pastors, youth workers, parents, grandparents around the globe.
It seems that kids today, as we heard Jeff in the panel talk about, they are so distracted. So how do you encourage them?
Yeah, well, one of the important ways to encourage them is to invest in them. And actually, adults letting young people know that they see the value in them, the abilities and the gifts that they have. Yeah, we can talk about video games, and that is a distraction, and they're carrying them around on their phone, and there's, of course, social media and those things that are distractions. But in the midst of all that, every generation has had the latest thing that causes the young people to be attracted to that. What we have to do as the adults in the generation is to say, there is incredible value in you that God has placed in you. And the time for that to be brought out is now. When a young person receives Christ into their life, the Holy Spirit does not go into some little time capsule or serve as a junior Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit that is inside of them is the same Holy Spirit that's inside of you and me when we receive Christ. And we have to believe that now is the time that the Holy Spirit can actually do great things in and through them. But they need mentors. I still have mentors at my age. And so, of course, young people need mentors to help bring that out in them.
Talk about some of the success stories, because as you have mentioned, you are expanding.
Yeah. Well, one success story would be I just returned from an Asia trip. I was there for 3 weeks. And the last part of my trip, I came out of Pakistan. Now, when I say Pakistan, some people shudder because it's always on the list of most persecuted countries for Christians and whatnot. But the area where I was 6 years ago, we saw a passionate leader for Christ want to impact young people. And so we had gotten connected. I met him here in the United States, eventually went there, and they started Christian Endeavor with a group of pastors from just 10 churches in one city. I had the chance to just return 6 years later, and our first meeting was with pastors that had come from across the entire country. There was a room packed with 250 pastors that were like, people were standing outside because they couldn't fit into the room. And they were so excited about impacting young people. The next day we had a youth rally, and there were between 300 and 400 young people. And one of the pastors came up to me and they said, there's nothing like this in our city or our region to impact the young people. And so you see this hunger that is out there, and when ministry is transferred to the young people so that it's youth ministry that is with the youth as opposed to the youth, you see such an impact. And I could share so many stories from so many cultures where this is working, including our own.
Wow, God is certainly working. Now, we have to take a break, Dave, but you're going to be with us for our next segment. And coming up next, Dave will share details about his book, Less Like Hippos, More Like Honeybees. We are back in 1 minute. Welcome back. You heard the mission of Christian Endeavor in our last segment. Joining me once again is Global Director Dave Coryell, who wrote a book on how to guide today's youth. You are the author of this book, Less Like Hippos, More Like Honeybees. Love the title. Tell us about it.
Well, hippos come out of the water to eat for 6 hours straight every night. And they can eat up to 110 pounds every single day. So the idea with Less Like Hippos is that today we are treating young people like they are consumers. You talk to the average church and you ask them, how's your youth ministry going? Then you'll usually hear, oh, we have this many kids showing up, this many youth whose rear ends are sitting down in the seats and attending their programs. And that has become the definition of whether or not our youth ministries are successful. It's based on consumption. And we want to see a shift that moves from less like hippos, less like consumption, to more like honeybees, where we see young people as this incredible resource that is a group of people that are creative and collaborative and are ready to contribute now, not just sometime in the future when they magically wake up one day and someone decides they're old enough to serve on a church committee, but they have abilities and gifts now. And this book walks through that metaphor and then actually provides a roadmap for how we as youth workers, as pastors, as church leaders, really even as parents, caregivers, and grandparents can take the resource here in this book and apply it to the young people God's given them the opportunity to serve.
And how can you apply it? What are some of the suggestions?
Yeah. Well, one idea is the investment in young people relationally is so key. If you hear any strategy to work with young people and it doesn't first talk about the importance of relationship, then they're missing the boat. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8 says that we gave you not only the gospel of God, but our very lives as well. And so we need to invest relationally. But beyond that, and actually the book has a little Venn diagram where there's 3 circles, and in the center of that, it talks about impact. And the 3 different circles, they represent the how we are a champion for young people when we're really unleashing them to do God's work. We might have relationships that we can open doors for them and introduce them to people that can give them opportunities. We also have the opportunity to empower them. Now, the word empower gets tossed around like a hot potato. Everybody talks about how they want to empower. Very few people can actually define what that means. And I was with a group of global leaders, 39 different organizations that do youth work around the world. And we had come together as part of a global collab. This group spent over an hour discussing the definition of empowerment. They couldn't even agree on it.
Right.
I actually define that in the book, and I talk about how there's this passing on of something. And so you're a champion for them, you're empowering them. Maybe that's with skills and abilities and that you're helping them sharpen. But then you can do those two things, those two circles, and still not see young people do anything. And that's because there's a third area, and that third area is to motivate. And so every one of the young people you know, they're not wired the same. Some people are going to be, they're going to be motivated by one method, and another group will be a totally different one. So if you try to just have a blanket method, it's only going to work on a few. That's where the relationship is so important. So build the relationship and then understand how you can champion, empower, and motivate. And when you do that appropriately, you're going to see young people just flourish as the church today. They are the church of the future and the church of today.
That is wonderful advice. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, it was great to be with you.
And for more information about Christian Endeavor, check out ceworks.faith. Stay with us. We are back right after the break.